Change the following decimal into percentage. So we need to convert a decimal number into a percentage, which is fairly easy. But we're not going to move on to the solution of this just yet, because I have something very important to share with you. So pay attention. Now, the question here tells us to change this decimal number into a percentage, which also means that what the question wants us to do is to get rid of this decimal point in this decimal number. So we need to get rid of this decimal, and we need to figure out a way to do that. And the way to get rid of a decimal point in a decimal number is to multiply that number by 10 or 100 or 1000 or 10,000. In short, by any number made up of 1 and a couple of zeros, depending on where we want the decimal to land. So, as I said, we multiply it, which is the first rule. So, when you multiply, what happens is the decimal point is going to move towards the right, and eventually it is going to move to a place where we can do without writing this down. So let's suppose I multiply 1.20 by 100. What is going to happen is that this decimal point right here is going to shift 2 places towards the right. Now, why is it going to move 2 places towards the right? That is because the number of places that the decimal point is going to move depends on the number of zeros in the number we are multiplying the decimal number with. So if we're multiplying it with 100 has 2 zeros, which means the decimal point should move 2 places towards the right. Now if it moves 2 places towards the right, what is going to happen is that this number is no longer going to be 1.20. This number is going to be 120.0, which is exactly the same as 120. We can do without writing this decimal point and 0 down. So 120.0 is exactly the same as 120. Now similarly, if we multiply this number 1.20 by 1000, the decimal place is going to move 3 places towards the right, because we have 3 zeros in 1000, and the number is then going to be, if we multiply it by 1000, the number is then going to be 1200.0, which is the same as 1200. So again, we can do without writing the decimal point or this 0 for that matter. So technically we have already solved this question, but let's break it down into steps and do it again. So step 1 is very simple. We just need to write down the decimal number, the operation that we're going to do, and the number we're going to multiply it with. So this is our first step. Now our second step is where we get to the math. So we multiply these numbers and we see what we get as an answer. So we just discussed that the decimal point moves towards the right, and since there are 2 zeros, we know that it's going to move 2 places towards the right, which means 120. Right? We get 120. Now if we refer back to the question, what we see is that we need to change this decimal into a percentage, and we cannot write a percentage until and unless we use a percent sign. So we'll add a percent sign, and 1.20 when converted into a percentage is 120%.